Hi, Jim. This is Carl from out west. Happy Thanksgiving. I'm so thankful for you and all the wisdom you've shared through your blog, books, and podcasts. You've provided a wealth of knowledge on the topics of personal finance, and there's also been a lot of content recently on developing a side hustle. What I really need help on, though, is my front hustle, or whatever you want to call your main job. I need help running my primary job of being a doctor. I'm a private practice surgical subspecialist, and my practice got rocked by the COVID pandemic, which hit during my first year out of training. And now I'm struggling to rebuild my practice. I've spent the last 10 years learning how to treat patients surgically, but I haven't learned a thing about how to build a business, manage a team of employees, develop and implement a marketing strategy, keep my overhead down, drive more patients into my clinic, and increase my overall productivity. Don't get me wrong. I love doing it this way, and I get a lot of fulfillment out of being a part of a small group and building my own practice, especially in a world that's shifting more and more toward hospital employment. I just want to know how to run my own practice better. So, what resources are there out there to help me? Do you know of any good books, podcasts, blogs, etc., that I can turn to for help? What's the one thing I can do right now to generate more business for myself? Thanks again for all you do. I hope you and your family have a safe and happy holidays.
Okay, Carl, I'm sorry you're dealing with this scenario. No, you're not alone. Shoot, I think all of us have had a decrease in income. If you're a physician and your income went up this year, count your lucky stars, because most of ours did not. At one point, I think our volumes were down in the ED about 40%. I think we're still about 10% down from where we were in February. So I know you're a private practice surgical subspecialist, a year out of training, who's struggling to rebuild your practice due to COVID. But realize we're all in this scenario. So some things you consider. You're looking for resources. So let's talk about a couple of books here that might help you. One of which is called Secrets of the Best Run Practices. This is by Judy Kopko. And this is really what it's all about. I mean, you can only do so much to improve your practice, but chances are, if you're like most docs, you haven't done any of these things. And you can make your practice far more efficient than it otherwise is. So read that book. It'll probably be worth its weight in gold to you as a private practice owner. Another one that may be worth looking at is Tom Harbin's The Business Side of Medicine. And a little bit more of that is personal finance kind of stuff, but it does have some good practice management stuff. I think he's an orthopedist, as I recall, and does talk about some things you can do to make your practice more efficient and, just run it better. But this is an area as a practice owner, you've got to spend some time on. You're running a business. And if you just spend all your time focusing on the medicine, don't be surprised when the business doesn't do very well. Okay, another thing you can do, you can talk to private practice doctors. As much as you can, both in person and online. A lot of people think, oh, nobody's going to help me. Well, I mean, if you're an ENT doc, don't go to the ENT doc down the road and ask him for tips. Go to the orthopedist across the hall, right? He's running a similar practice and he has no competition with you whatsoever. Or band together on an online forum with other ENTs that are across the country. You're not competing with an ENT from Florida if you're in Tennessee. That's just the way it is. And so talk to them about what they're doing in their practices, bounce your questions off them, and you'd be surprised, if you just start adopting best practices, how much more efficient your practice becomes. Your expenses go down, your income goes up, your life becomes happier, everything gets better. You can check out the WCI forum. You can ask your questions there. You can go to your specialty forum or to the Doctors in Practice forum at Student Doctor Network. That's another place where I've seen a lot of questions like that. You might find it to be helpful. You can try the Sermo forums, asking questions like that. There can be a little bit of negativity on that forum a lot of times, but if you can get specific answers to your questions, that's not a bad place to go either. Okay, here's another tip for you. If you're not seeing patients, if you're not actively practicing medicine or doing something that has to be done in the practice, be marketing the practice. So if you're a surgical subspecialist, you should be marketing to who? You should be marketing to primary care docs, emergency doctors, etc. Have you been to the office of every family doc within 10 miles of your practice? Are you taking ED call? Do you actually ever go into the ED and see a patient when you're called? Because if you do that, you introduce yourself to the doc on call, that doc may very well send you every referral in your specialty for the next 10 years. We're just so excited to finally see somebody in the ED because in community practice, few people actually come to the bedside when they're consulted. And that sort of stuff is not that hard if you're not that busy because COVID has crushed your practice. it's a great time to pick up some of those things, and you might be surprised how much of a difference it makes over the long run. Honestly, it's not that hard to distinguish yourself from the other doctors in the area, right? Most doctors don't do any marketing at all. And they're certainly not out there hustling like crazy, and they're probably not all that good at running a business. So you only have to do a little bit of this stuff to really distinguish yourself from all of your peers. And it's pretty amazing. I can tell you, I've called doctors of every specialty, and there's some of them who are glad to have my business, and there are some that not. And you can guess which ones I send my patients to. And so keep that in mind. It helps if you keep the practice as lean as you can. Of course, it's no margin, no mission. If you don't stay in business, you can't help anybody. And so keep the practice lean. Try to keep your expenditures variable rather than fixed. That way they can be cut back in the event that something like this happens. And make sure that your billing practices are being done well. Have a clear no-show policy. Collect your copays at the time of service, those sorts of things. Know whether you ought to hold on to a claim and send it in a few weeks or months. After the patient's copay has been, or their coinsurance has been collected, or whether it's better to send it in right away and get your bill, the first one, in front of their eyeballs. It just depends. Sometimes we try to race the hospital with our bill, and sometimes we let the hospital send their bill first. But experiment with those things, and you may find out that, you make more money one way than you do the other. If you want your questions answered by the White Coat Investor, record your question at whitecoatinvestor.com/YQA or click the link in the description.